Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.
From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
The concern is that standing water like this is going to freeze over the winter. And when it thaws next spring, we could be in for another round of flooding, says Fremont County Emergency Management Coordinator Mike Crecilius.
As long as it stays up, the interior drainage cannot take place. The river has got to drop down close to being 16 feet so we can evacuate the water that we have standing in the fields and every place else right now. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be just like last fall was.
And as it looks right now, there's no chance of the river dropping much before the winter freeze sets in.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Nebraska flooding 2019. Returning with an update are Ellen Dyson, a community outreach specialist with the College of Public Health at UNMC, and the Central State Center for Agricultural Safety and Health. Next to her, Jessica Seaman. Jessica is a graduate student at UNMC's College of Nursing. She is here today to talk about her community's journey out of the devastation. Thank you both so much for coming back.
Well, thank you for having us.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet. Ellen, I want to start as if there's not enough for folks to be worried about right now. The potential for another round of flooding in 2020. From your perspective, what would you say to Nebraskans who are watching this program?
Well, I think that as this news started coming out within the last few weeks that this flooding may reoccur because of just the massive amount of water we have left in our fields. I think that people who have been recovering over the last 6 months, this really has to be a blow to them. And, you know, we all need to understand what we can expect for the future, and this is really hard for people. So I think that we can expect that there's going to be lots of questions. I think people need to be open about their feelings about this, and our officials of course are going to be answering a lot of questions about how we can best keep some of the massive flooding from happening again.
Yeah, and you have literally been knee deep in all of this since last spring. How were you introduced to the flooding, Ellen?
Well, I think like most of us, we woke up to some news that was just horrific. You know, we had the breach of the Spencer Dam, and I don't think anyone at that time had any concept of how devastating this would be. But as the levees broke, and not only Nebraska, but Iowa became involved. Mm-hmm. And I received a call early the morning shortly after the breach that from a good friend in North Bend, and she's also a colleague, a safety and health colleague, and she said our town is underwater, and they farm there. They said that we have people coming up to our farm because we're on the high ground, and she had already started some emergency response, understanding what the hazards were going to be. So we were able to get some safety kits together immediately because a lot of the things that people are using to clean up, we already use in rural communities on almost a daily basis. So we were able to get those into North Bend, and as this grew, our outreach grew for providing safety kits and information about how to stay safe and healthy. The university at the medical center became a huge partner in this. UNL did a heroic job getting students involved, and I think we saw what Nebraska Strong looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do, for folks, again, just going back to bring us to where we are today, we have 2 satellite photos side by side to really offer that perspective. Ellen, take a look at this, and what do you see?
Wow, and I think everyone can see that. You know, the Missouri is out of its banks. We see, I believe, the Elkhorn there. That we are just witnessing the inundation of not only farmland, but housing and a lot of people's lives changed with those two photos, didn't they?
74 cities, 65
That's
counties,
correct.
declaring a state of emergency, right? We have some photos that we want to show our viewers to kind of take them across the state to see what a state of emergency really does look like. This is Plattsmouth. We'll start there.
That's right, and you see the BNSF train there stalled, and we know that in Fremont, same thing. They had train crews that were they had the UP jet come and move the train crews out because they were stuck, and so a lot of lives impacted and commerce impacted.
Wow. Okay, on to Elkhorn Valley.
And this is a total devastation, isn't it? And you see the farm up on the right-hand side there that has been totally taken over by the flood water, and the ground along there. And we know now that probably a lot of that farmland was not plantable this season.
On to Columbus.
And Columbus, a town that we know to be heavily populated, and this is more of the rural parts of Columbus there, but you can see again the residents and maybe even some manufacturing there that was involved in the flooding in this region.
Okay, the Platte River.
And the Platte River. You know, and I think a lot of us expect flooding in the spring along the Platte, but this was historic flooding along the Platte River, and people who had their homes and farmland along there. Some of the areas had never seen flooding before.
Yeah. St. Edward?
Oh, St. Edwards. And this was one of the towns that was recently featured in an NET documentary, and the comeback and how this town has pulled together is really heartwarming, and it just shows how people can be resilient. And this town, there are a number of these businesses that are open.
On to Arlington.
And Arlington. Once again, and when you talk about the breadth of this flooding onto Arlington and the amount of flooding you see there, not only farmland but also some of the town as well.
And the final is Douglas County. And
Douglas County, yes, and that kind of cut off. As those of us that travel that route knew that was a route that was cut off, and people feel very, very scared and very isolated when their roads are gone.
Wow. Jessica, now Chris Lake in Sarpy County, also impacted. You know firsthand how it was impacted. Tell us the story there.
Sure. So Hanson, Chris, Betty Lakes were down near Sarpy, Cass County line, right on the Platte. And as Ellen mentioned, it was we heard about things in the news, but we didn't think it was going to be us. And then one day, it was us. I was driving to work and I seen some water on the road and didn't think much about it, and got a call at 11 o'clock saying, hey, neighborhood's being evacuated, get home. So went home, and still we didn't think it was gonna be it. Mm-hmm. So they shut the power off around 4 o'clock that day. We came back Saturday morning and it had breached. There was water coming in, and by Sunday most homes were pretty much flooded. So it was definitely something that we didn't expect coming in. So,
what happened to your community as a result, other than obviously the devastation piece? But talk about how or what it did for your community.
Sure. So, of course, this is a tragic event. A lot of people lost a lot of things. Thankfully, we didn't lose any lives in our small community. We could have, but luckily everyone got out. But I think it's made us stronger. Nebraska Strong, as Ellen said, it really has come true. People have stepped up, and we've met neighbors that we would drive by their house every day, but we didn't know them. Just walk down the street, and now we're seeing the rebuilding and getting to know people a little bit better, and understanding that we've all been through a common thing, and how do we, prepare for the future, whatever that brings.
Okay, thank you. And Ellen, we have another photo that we want to put up, because this really has been a nonstop effort, in the spring, starting there and going in through the summer. So we want to put up a photo of a gal surrounded by some things.
Yes, indeed. This is Jill Oatman, and she is a Master's of Public Health student at the College of Public Health and in our center. And Jill was one of many, many people at the university who banded together, and it was it became heroic, the number, because it happened to coincide with the Nebraska Public Health Conference. And so we were able to get with the public health departments, rather than deliver all of these, drive them out to the public health departments, which may have been difficult in some cases. We're able to take over 1,000 of these directly to the conference and disseminate them to the public health directors who had the touch points with their. Pretty amazing. And then from there, they could call us and say, well, I thought I only needed 50, but I need 70. So we were able to then get more of those out. And we were able to get to four or five of the tribal sites as well with these kits. And so it was something that not only the importance of getting this information, it was packed full of great information, and also lots of personal protective equipment, but also the fact that someone was thinking about them.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, we do think of that as a kit, right? If we don't need it, to them, it's like a lifesaver, right?
It's a touch point.
So what types of responses? I can't even imagine. No wonder she was smiling in that photo.
Yeah.
It's got to be such a feel good to be able to deliver something like that.
It was, and let me tell you, Jill was able to take quite a load to, she's from Broken Bow, and so she drove up there to their, one of their health departments that was close to Broken Bow, and delivered a whole truckload of these. And she said the response of the public health department, a lot of these people had also been affected. And so they were the ones with boots on the ground getting things taken care of for people, while at home, their homes were inundated. And so that also speaks to public health and service, I think, as well.
I can't even begin to imagine the number of stories. Jessica has shared her story with us, countless other stories, and you both, I'm sure, would have so many to tell. Ellen, if there were one that touched you in a way that you will just never forget, would you have a story like that?
I do, and as a matter of fact, it happened yesterday. You would think
Wow.
that a lot of this had moved on, right? It's been 6 months, but it really hasn't moved on for many people. And so we spent the last 3 days at Husker Harvest Days, a great big agriculture farm show outside of Grand Island and Wood River. And we went there with the intent, we're always there, but this year we went with the intent of, we had some of our safety kits there, and we've had a big sign and said, if you are still battling mold or want to talk about your homes or barns or whatever you want to talk about, talk to us. And we had respirators, and then we also had our kits. And a fella came up, and he came up with his daughter, and he was talking about how he thought he had gotten over this because he had lost all his calves in the flooding, watched them die, and then a lot of his cows had also died. And he said, we've worked on our house, it's looking great. I'm working on my barns, it's looking great. He said, but when it came to time that should have been weaning my calves, he said it was devastating. And then when it came time that he should have been marketing his calves, he said it wasn't the money, it was the fact that this was part of his life that wasn't there. So we think we can recover our homes, but we still have some deep wounds and things that we don't know what the triggers will be. And it might be the next rain. We don't know what the triggers. So we really need to talk about mental health.
Well, absolutely.
Stress.
And we want to put up a graphic for the viewers because you're going to walk us through, Ellen, some things that people still need to be thinking about. Absolutely. And that stress and that mental wellness, one of those things that we really need to be working through. Walk us through these, if you would.
Okay. So people are still battling with moldy homes and shops. And Jessica, I'm sure you see that in your neighborhood as well. People are trying, some people have hired mitigation crews to come in and fix them, but some people are still working on their own and may not have the resources. So we are still talking a lot about safe ways to get that mold out. Our farmers are going to have some wet grain to deal with and already have a lot of wet grain to deal with. The contaminated well water, we cannot stress enough that even if you aren't involved in flooding, you should have your well tested every year. But if you were involved in flooding, you absolutely should not be drinking your well water until it is tested and deemed healthy enough to drink. So please remember that. And then chemical cleanups. We have barns that are still in disarray with a witch's brew of chemicals on the ground, and those cleanups need to be handled very carefully and with the proper personal protective equipment. And I want to talk about mosquitoes real quickly because we know that we have a number of mosquito. We had our first West Nile, is that correct, Jessica?
In Sarpy County.
In Sarpy County, and we also have now the mosquito that carries Zika that was found in York County just yesterday, I believe. So we have to be very vigilant with standing water. If you have something in your yard with standing water, please dump it. Turn it upside down. Old tires, if you're a farmer, get those tires dumped out. Make sure that you have nothing that these mosquitoes can breed in. And then we always worry about hidden hazards, things we don't think about, but if you're cleaning out a drawer that's been moldy and it has maybe something in there that you didn't expect and it's covered with mold, don't just put your hand down in there. Make sure, because there could be sharps in there or something that you didn't remember that was in that drawer. And then we put stress at the bottom. It's probably the most important. And we need to talk, and we need to talk, and we need to talk. Talk to your farmers, talk to your friends, talk to your next door neighbors. Ask them if they're okay.
Yeah, and I do want to hit that pretty hard because that's really what's going to drive your whole frame of mind is going to drive so much of what we're doing in terms of whether people are thinking clearly about the items that you just mentioned and the things that you're about to show us. And so, you know, Jessica, from having been there and really walking with an entire community out of all of this, what would you suggest to people who are watching and thinking, this is just something I don't know that I will ever be able to get over?
Yeah, it's hard. I would say everyone needs to be prepared, even if you don't think it's going to be you, because we didn't think it was us, and if we had done things to prepare, we might have been in a better situation. But you just have to work together with your neighbors, and if you know someone that's been impacted, reach out to them. Like Ellen said, it means so much just to get a call that's, hey, how's it going? Because you're constantly thinking about, you know, am I going to be able to rebuild? There's so many repercussions that have gone on with financial strain now. A lot of people having to find the money to repair or rebuild or find somewhere new, which is going to impact long-term finances. Stress and mental health is also huge. I took a neighborhood poll of our survey recently and got more than like 40 responses, and more than half the people said that the flood directly impacted their physical or mental health. And they can say that today, but I think there's a lot of people that may not have seen the consequences yet of what it's done. People are dealing with everyday life too. You know, we have neighbors that have gone into assisted living, neighbors that have recently lost their spouse and are also dealing with the flooding on top of it. And so you just put all that strain on a person, and it can really break someone down.
Well, you really drive it home, Jessica, when you talk about loss, and we do that quite a bit with the older population. This is just a slew of loss, all thrown at somebody at one time, people of all ages. Was there anything, again, you having gone through that you learned about yourself, or that you were able to grow out of all of this?
Yeah, I think it's just coming together and realizing that we each play a part in helping. And so, you know, if it's someone bringing water down the street to the construction crews to help your neighbor get in quicker, if it's someone that can help do your laundry to make you, get back, or if it's bringing a dinner in or donating money towards someone's rent, everyone plays a part no matter who you are. If you have, the knowledge of background in public health or professional medical or nursing, you bring a different perspective. But if you're, a plumber, or if you're working as a school bus driver, we still need you, and everyone needs to come together, and it's our community. We need to prepare and be ready in case something like this happens again.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. You talk about people not knowing each other at all before something like this, and now not only do they know each other, but they think so much differently when there's something going on in that person's life. Thank you very much for that vantage point. Ellen, you did not disappoint. You brought your props again this time. For people who didn't see the other program, Ellen had a lot of props, but helpful, because people are, once they get into that right frame of mind, hopefully, to get that cleanup process starting, there are still things that they've got to be thinking about, just things that we wouldn't stop to think about if we weren't impacted. So walk us through these briefly, if you would.
Well, what we want to continue talking about, of course, safety. And so I'm going to start, well, you know what, let's start from head.
Okay.
Head to toe.
Okay.
Okay. You know, when you're working in any environment that has mold, mildew, even dusty environments that you may have because of, and this is even beyond the flooding. You can think about protecting your eyes, because our eyes are a really great way of getting things into our bloodstream. And so if we don't protect our eyes, we may become sick even though we're protecting other parts of our body. So these are just a pair of ventless safety goggles. You can buy them at your local hardware store, and great to have around for protecting those eyes.
Okay.
And then the lungs, we need to talk about the lungs. And you know, when we talk about protecting against dry things, particulates like dust, or dry molds, we can talk about wearing something like this. That's an N95 two-strap respirator, and this is something that you can also get a lot of times in the paint department of your hardware store. You want to make sure that it's a good one, because you want to make sure you know you're protected. And this is something that will not, though, protect you against chemicals. So if you're spraying Clorox or bleach, you want to make sure that you've got the right protection.
And here?
And then if you are spraying bleach or any type of cleaning chemical, you absolutely need to read the instructions on that. And if it tells you that this particular chemical is a hazard to your lungs or breathing, you need to have something like this. And this, again, you can buy at your local hardware store. And this is a respirator that has chemical filters. And these filters, as you breathe in, they're going to filter those gases through there, capture them on that filter, and you're going to be breathing purified air. So we have had several reports of people that have been using bleach and may have become overcome from that bleach. So we want to make sure people are reading the instructions on their cleaning supplies and their chemicals, and that includes things that you're spraying on your yards too, and making sure you have the right respiratory protection. And then also read the instructions on everything. Your instructions are going to give you a lot of information that you need to know. And then always taking care of our hands. And these are gloves that would be something that you could use if you were not only cleaning something that is wet, so like from the flooding, but also if you are spraying chemicals or cleaning supplies. Do something like this that it won't soak through. It'll keep that chemical off your skin. And these, actually, you can find these either at your hardware store, or they even have them at the grocery store and in the cleaning supply.
Okay, perfect. And what are you finding of all of this? Is there a most common mistake or something that people don't think about that would most adversely impact them, Ellen, of all of this?
Of all of this, we of course, working with a lot of pulmonologists at the Med Center, we really worry about our lungs, but I also really worry about our eyes, because people don't really realize how easy it is to get things into our system through our eyes.
Okay, and I'm going to ask kind of a silly question, but I have to ask it because I'm looking at this stuff. So I use this, I've gotten my use out of it, and now I'm going to loan it to my neighbor.
I'm not going to have you do that.
All right,
Kathy.
thank you. I just, you know, when I listen to Jessica talk about how everybody wants to help each other, if somebody says, I could really use that, they take it off and say, you know what, I'm done with it.
I'm going to tell you how you can do that.
Okay.
You're going to take it completely apart, take your filters off, and you're going to wash it in soap and water completely, cleaning it out. You're going to let it dry, and then you can let your neighbor use it.
Perfect.
But until every piece of this is washed,
ask.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Because
Ellen.
that was something I should have.
No. I'm just looking at it and thinking, I don't know.
Yeah, don't want to spread something else on top of it.
And actually, and then you can store these. Obviously, it can be used time and time again. There's different types of filters that will fit on this. And if you store it, or maybe even put your name across the top in a marker, so that someone doesn't use your respirator.
Okay. Now, in the minute we have remaining, bringing the program full circle, any simple things to remember as you're preparing for what could be another bout of this in 2020? What would be the top few things in
Absolutely.
a minute?
And I will tell you, there's some simple things you can do. And the first thing that I think about, a lot of people were overwhelmed. They didn't know what to grab when the flooding came. I have a relative in Pacific Junction that had about 5 minutes before her son-in-law came and picked her up. She was standing with only her purse. Everything else was lost. So if you can put all of your documents, go today, grab a waterproof, they're not expensive, a waterproof file, put everything you need in that file. It'll also help you organize a little bit.
Perfect.
Make a list of important numbers, because if our cell phone is lost, I don't know anyone's number.
No.
Make sure that's in that file.
That's great advice. And we do have websites too. If folks want more information on this program today, we're going to put those up. Let's see, we have unmc.edu/flood, flood.unl.edu, nsc.org, and crisistextline.org. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for being here. Best wishes to you moving forward. Thanks for everything you're doing for the state of Nebraska. Thank our students who are working so hard behind the scenes, and of course, our viewers for watching. As we close, a look at Kennefic Park in Omaha, seen through the lens of Jessica Salinas, a senior at UNO. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/Consider This. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.